Welcome to class. In continuation with our fundamentals of communication skills, we will focus today on one of the linguistic skills, very important linguistic skills, that is speaking skills. It is also very active skill, right? Productive skills. So people call it by different names: productive skills, active skills. But speaking is essentially a very productive and effective skill. Uh, when you speak, when you open your mouth, the utterances, the sentences, the words that you speak, they tell a lot about you, right? So we have to be very particular, specifically in our professional domain, because lots of things are interpreted out of it. Sometimes intended messages, sometimes something which is unintentional is also interpreted with the tone, with the speed, with the delivery, with the manner in which you deliver. So we have to be a little prepared in our professional domains. When we speak, we need to speak effectively. So what you say is very important, but equally important is how you say it. And speaking in public or speaking to different people in an official setting, in a professional setting, can be made easy if we locate and identify a few shortcomings in our delivery. And there is no universal list that talks about the shortcomings in speaking, right? Because this is a very personalized, individual skill. So we all speak differently, but there are certain universal things that must be present when you speak, like the intent, the content, the format, the mode, the tone, fluency. So we have to be little careful about all these things, and speaking can be made easy and effective. So don't worry about the speed, don't worry about the accent, don't worry about high frequency words or simple sentences. They are required, right? And we can overcome a few problems that we have. So let us first understand what problems do we have in speaking English. English is not your mother tongue, right? And we are not native speaker of English. English is our second language. To some people, it is third language. We learn English in a formal setting, right? We don't use English in our everyday life in most of the situations. English is language of higher education. So in a very formal settings, we have English present. And we are multilingual by nature. We all come from a different linguistic background that also interferes with your performance in English. So there are certain problems, and what I have done, I have listed them out of my experience with different students in the class and people who use English in professional domain. So there are certain problems we all are aware. I will just underline a list of things that may happen. Not necessarily all of these are present with you. You all have the same problem. Some of them may be a problem area for you. So this list is just to understand those problem areas, identify those problem areas and work on them. And the first thing and the most important thing is anxiety. And believe me, it is quite natural. You don't have to be worried about it. We all have anxiety when we speak in a formally learned language called English. Because that's not our natural expression, doesn't come through this language. So we all have this, specific anxiety about speaking English. So you might have seen people who speak in normal speech, normal variation, with normal tempo, at a normal speed, who look very relaxed when they use their mother tongue, or even non-English language, any non-English language, which they have learned and used as a bilingual. But the moment you start speaking English, we get a kind of stress on the face. Stress, unnecessary stress comes in. You become cautious, right? Uh, you become, it becomes obvious that you are making effort. Anxiety and nervousness may be there with some people, not every one of you, but some people may have this nervousness and anxiety before speaking English. So speaking becomes challenging for them. It leads to lack of confidence, because the moment you are nervous and you have anxiety, then your confidence is shaken up. You become overcautious, right? You are dominated by a tendency of hypercorrection. So we have this continuous fear of mistakes. Continuous fear of mistake, because you don't appear natural. You become effortful. You are making efforts, right? So that leads to nervousness, that amounts to anxiety, that shakes up your confidence. You become hyper corrective, right? So you will start correcting even if it is not required. So relax, you don't have to worry. It's very natural and it happens with most of us. Then another problem is that we find the idea just scattered, because the thought process does not seem consistent and continuous. So we have to make a lot of effort to collect our ideas, right? We are continuously haunted by this fear of mistake. Sometimes lack of preparation on the content also leads you to that. Then if you do not have good control on the content, or if you lack appropriate linguistic skills, you have inappropriate communication strategies. Most of us, when we speak English, we speak in monotone. So there is no animation in the voice, no variation in the voice. Our body becomes stiff and rigid. So this natural flow and flexibility is missing. And frequent distractions, because you are so alert and so concentrated that sometimes we lose control, right? And sometimes we are distracted because of various emotions we are challenged with. So these are certain challenges. And why they happen? Because you are not speaking in your mother tongue. You do not have natural flair. This is not your native language. You have not learnt this language in an informal setting. Natural expression or a spontaneity is missing. So lots of reasons and lots of challenges. I have just listed a few. We need to identify and understand, where do I need to work on my anxiety part. And let me tell you, they're all integrated and related. They're not independent problems, because improvement in one will feed into the other. So if you become confident, suddenly you find that your anxiety and nervousness is gone. You are confident. And the moment you become confident, spontaneity and fluency automatically follow, right? If you have control on the content you are going to speak, you are going to talk about, you will have confidence. So these are all interrelated. They are not independent, they are interdependent. So improvement in one area helps you develop in other area, and this is how we develop it overall. It can be made easy. It's not difficult. A few homeworks that we need to do before talking in public, or before making a presentation, or before interacting formally. We need to make some homeworks. We need to do some homeworks, make some preparations, and that is pre-speech event preparations. So first and foremost, you should know your audience. Whom are you talking to? In order to become an effective speaker, you need to understand your audience. Then you need to prepare on what you are going to talk about. So your topic, your theme, you must be familiar and you should prepare on that. And that will help you develop control on the contents. Then collect all required information if possible. And sometimes you may not have time to do so because you have to make a speech or interact in a group, hold a office meeting quickly. But again, the smartness is that you need to collect some information before you start talking, and for that you need to be familiar with the theme and develop your own opinion about it. So it's a complex process. It helps you develop confidence, control over the content. Then you have to organize the information you have, right, in a synchronic order. And then how to introduce your idea. Introduction of your idea must be effective. And when you elaborate it, because you need to draw attention of your audience while introducing the idea. And then you can elaborate and discuss and continue, right? The arguments that you put forward or the qualifying sentences that you utter after introduction, they must be logical, coherent, and meaningful. You should avoid unnecessary repetitions. If you need to repeat, paraphrase it, right? Emphasize on the portions what you feel important. Pauses work wonders. Pauses are important. You have to take a pause intermittently, but not unnecessarily. Stretching a pause may bore your audience, may distract your audience. But pauses are important before suppose you are going to introduce a very important idea. A little pause before that will suddenly draw attention of your audience to what you are going to speak. Allow them to anticipate what is coming. A little pause works wonder when you change the idea. So these are certain tips we need to keep in mind. So when we say effective speaking, what does it imply? So speaking intelligibly. So what you speak must be easy for others to comprehend. That is the first condition. Be intelligible, right? Then speaking fluently. And fluent speaking doesn't mean speaking without a break or speaking without a pause or speaking at a very high speed. No. Fluency refers to the continuity of idea and continuity of utterances and sentences. So it should not be interruptive at content level, at format level. So language must be in a flow, utterances must be in a single flow, and there must be continuity in the idea, progressive continuity, continuously progressive, and idea is continuous and progresses to a certain direction as you intended. But if it puts a lot of cognitive load on your audience, then it can be problematic. So it has to be intelligible and fluent. And it comes when you are confident while speaking. So you should sound confident, you should look confident, and you should be confident. And you can be confident, you can sound confident, and you can look confident only when you are well prepared. So preparation is very important. Paraphrasing is a signal of your confidence and control. So only those speakers paraphrase who have control on the content and who have confidence. Because you might have seen people are always in a hurry to finish what they want to say. And why it happens? It happens because they are scared of losing it midway. So you need to be confident, and you shouldn't appear in a hurry to finish what you want to say. It should be finished within time, no doubt about it, but that you shouldn't be desperate to finish. So paraphrasing signals confidence of the speaker, and also it implies that the speaker is considerate in engaging the audience and communicating the content effectively. So paraphrasing is a very positive thing, because it makes the understanding easy for your audience if they are not able to follow you what you say. Then you should also engage people, and always remember, even if you are making a presentation in office or official presentation, you should invite questions, you should invite feedbacks intermittently, right? And that keeps your audience engaged. At the same time, you can gauge whether they're able to follow you effectively or not, or have you delivered your message effectively or not. So asking for feedback. And how can you do that? By just asking a simple question based on what you said, or inviting a suggestion, or underline an opinion. So you can do in a multiple ways, but engage your audience when you speak. Then sound interactive skills. You might have seen people get agitated. They start responding in a very agitated manner. No, you need to be calm, composed, relaxed, and you need to give this impression that you are in control. You are poised, you are calm and in control, right? So you have to look composed. You don't have to sound desperate, scared, or irritated, or agitated, right? Because that leaves a very bad impression and negative impression on your audience. And when you invite questions, when you invite suggestions, respond to them. It has to be two-way. Moving on. So in effective speaking, what linguistic skills are required? Always remember vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. These three things are very important. Pronunciation, vocabulary, and grammar. So you have to have fairly good command on pronunciation. You should utter sounds clearly. As I told you, you don't have to sound like anyone, any other person, or native speaker, or an American speaker, a native speaker, or British native speaker. Not at all. If you have understanding of sounds of English, and if you minimize the interference of your mother tongue to little extent, and if you are able to pick up neutralized accent, right, that is sufficient for you. Then, in order to express what you are saying, in order to express what you intend to say, you need to have fairly good command on a wide range of vocabulary, and that comes with so many exercises and practices that enhances your input, language input. So required a lot of input in terms of words and when you start using these words, they become part of your verbal repertoire. You don't have to put a lot of effort to bring in. You can easily recall them. So, good command on vocabulary and grammar. You don't have to be a grammarian, but you should have fundamental functional understanding of grammar, English sentences, right? That will help you in speaking effectively. Then appropriacy in handling a range of topics, right? A range of contexts. Selecting appropriate expressions, words and structures. Because always remember, we cannot replace any word with any word. Every word has a semantic matrix, a shade we need to understand. For example, suppose you say incident, accident, right? Disaster, calamity, pandemic for that matter. Now we have catastrophe for that matter. So, all these words denote similar kind of semantic content. But incident cannot be replaced with accident. Accident cannot be replaced with disaster. Disaster cannot be replaced with catastrophe. Catastrophe cannot be replaced with pandemic. So, like sink, drown and capsize, right? Sink, drown and capsize. So, any word is not a replacement of another word. Every word has got a particular context and a semantic matrix. For example, we cannot say something like, we can say strong coffee, right? We can say sharp knife. We can say sharp mind. We can say intelligent mind. But can we say intelligent knife? Not at all. So, sharp with mind you can have sharp mind, intelligent mind. But with knife, I cannot have intelligent knife. I can have strong man. I can have a powerful man. I can have strong woman, a powerful woman. That is fine. I can say a strong coffee. But can I say powerful coffee? No. So, powerful and strong cannot be replaced by each other. So, we need to understand the word and the context in which they are used. So, the word and the use, then only you will be able to select semantically effective lexicon or a word for a particular purpose. Then you need to be good in understanding connectors, sentence connectors. So, how we can connect multiple sentences in speech, where to put stress, right? What are the linking devices? Because in writing it is obvious, you can see, but in speaking you'll have a lot of repetitions, a lot of overlaps. We need to connect ideas, and while connecting ideas you need to have longer sentences. So, in that case you need some linking devices, and if whether that, right, you need to understand elision and assimilation, cohesion, how to put structures in a cohesive manner, in a logical order, how to construct our ideas logically and put them in sentences, how to have coherent sentences, lucid sentences. So, we need to understand them. Elision, intonation, assimilation. When speaker speaks, and if you have a same sound in the word ending position and word beginning position. So, it's a bad, B-A-D, and doll, D-O-L-L, duh. So, the sound duh is the ending sound of the first word, and da is the beginning sound of the second word. So when we are speaking separately, two individual words sound two different words. But when you use these two different words in a connected speech, right, they assimilate. So you say bad doll, bad doll, bad doll. We don't say badder doll, D twice. Say bad doll. Fast train. Fast, ta is the last word. Train, ta is the first word or the second word. But when you speak together, we don't say faster train, we say fast train. So one ta is assimilated and they become one sound. So we need to understand all of these factors. Now, there are certain interactive skills we need to develop to become good speaker. Like fluency we have been talking about, speaking at natural speed, right? Linking and pausing naturally. So when you stop to breathe or to collect your idea, you have to be smart enough to play with this pause, right? And that is why animation in the voice is required. You can play with this pause to get some breather and also time to collect your idea. You have to be smart in that, and it will come to you gradually with practice. The act of paraphrasing, you need to develop this act of paraphrasing, speaking about the same idea in different ways, in different manners, so that your audience understands it better without any effort. You have to have alternate explanations if required. You have to substantiate what you are saying with examples, allow people to ask questions and feedback, right? So very quickly, we need to understand the significance of pronunciation and vocabulary, right, in good speaking. How to become a good speaker? You have to have a fairly good amount of control on pronunciation. As I told you, you don't need to sound like an American speaker or a British speaker. But if you are able to utter every sound clearly, neutralizing it without interfering of your mother tongue, and you are done. You don't have to sound like any other person. Your own style is sufficient to make an impression on people, right? Now, you also need to understand little things about sounds of English, sound patterns of English. For example, vowels in English, long and short vowels, right? So, length of a vowel does make a difference in meaning. So, gate versus get, wait versus wet, right? West versus waste, right? Beach versus bitch, peace versus piss. So, look at the long vowels. They make a difference. You have to be very particular. There are languages where this difference may be problematic because of the mother tongue interference. So, Bangla for that matter, right? Or other Indian languages, we do have problem with length of the vowel. So, you need to understand that in English, length of a vowel is a very serious thing. In English, length of the vowel is phonemic. It makes a difference in the meaning. So, you need to understand appropriate sound and also the nature of these sounds. I don't want you to become proficient in understanding the structure of language and syllable and all those things. You don't know that, but little awareness about basic fundamental character of the language will help you minimize the blunders and mistakes that we make while we speak, right? Vocabulary, forms the fundamental basis for any language, right? And vocabulary learning is a very complex phenomenon. Vocabulary doesn't refer to a single word. It may be a chunk of words giving us complete sense. And vocabulary learning is complete with mastering three aspects. Number one, form, the word, the structure of the word, so spelling and word. Then meaning, the concept encoded in the word. And third is the context in which it is used. So we don't only learn a word in isolation. We learn a word with three components: a structure of the word, meaning of the word, and context of the word. So where it is used. That makes you a proficient user and speaker in the language. Then structure and fluency are equally important. And if you go by David Crystal, a very renowned linguist, he says that grammar is a structural foundation of our ability to express ourselves. The more we are aware of how it works, the more we can monitor the meaning of effectiveness of the way we and others use language. It can help foster precision, detect ambiguity, and exploit the richness of expression available in English. And it is true to any language, not only English. It is true to all languages. So we need to develop little mastery over structures. So fundamental rules and functional rules of English. For example, English sentences cannot drop the subject. That's a very fundamental rule, right? In Hindi, we can drop the subject. In most of the Indian languages, we have the tendency of dropping the subject. But in English, you cannot drop the subject. And if at all the verb is impersonal and the subject is dropped, we have a replacement, and that is called expletive, it or there. So we say it's raining. We don't say raining. Is raining. It is raining. It has no meaning, but it occupies the subject position to complete the sentence. There was a king. You can't say was a king. There was a king. So in Indian languages, we may not require expletives or this kind of structure to occupy the subject position. And also, those languages where you have a very rich vocabulary, where the verb contains all other grammatical information, then we have this option of dropping the subject. In English, you can drop the subject only in one context, and that is imperative sentences. And that too, because the subject of all imperative sentences is one, and that is you. So imperative sentences like orders, commands, advice, right? Requests, helping. So if you look at the deep structure, or if you go down, it's you help me. You please help me. So you can be dropped. Help me. Right? Get out. Come in. You come in. You get out. So get out, come in, take medicine on time. You take medicine on time. So imperative sentences allow subject to be dropped, and the reason is the recoverability. If we can understand who is the subject, what is the subject, what word occupies the subject position. It is known, it is recoverable, so it allows. Otherwise, nowhere you drop the subject. So understanding little grammar helps a lot. And in this course, I am sure you are familiar with fundamental functional grammar and categories. So here you have to use them, you have to practice them, right? Another important factor in good speaking is fluency. And repeatedly I have been telling the same thing. Fluency doesn't mean high speed. or uncommon words or low frequency words. Fluency in communication refers to pace and flow in articulation uninterrupted, not the rate of the delivery, normal pace and normal flow. But it should not have interruptions at the level of idea. It should go in a flow. So you are fluent. You shouldn't look like making effort to make it fluent. When the moment you start speaking with relaxed posture and without obviously making effort, you are fluent, right? A steady rate of production of speech holds the attention of the speaker and comprehension happens without any impediment or obstacle. So if you have steady speed, not too high, not too low. Too high omits a lot of information. Too low reduces the interest of your audience. So you have to maintain a normal flow and a steady flow, and that is sufficient, right? You might have come across a lot of people speak at a very high speed and your audience feels tired, difficult to follow them. You feel tired. Some people speak very slow, so you feel exhausted and bored. So you have to strike a right balance. You don't have to speak at a very high speed, at the same time not so low that your audience is exhausted, right? There are certain communication strategies we have to follow, basic norms like greetings, your opening of the talk, turn taking and turn giving. So you should, in interactive communication or in a group meeting, we should have this courtesy of giving turn, and also capitalize on taking turn. So it is turn taking, turn giving, and it is a negotiated thing which happens between the communication partners, right? Holding the floor means what you say is logical, rational, and you have arguments to drive your point home. Paraphrase if you are using some complex idea. Clarify if you find that your audience is not following you. Being relaxed, composed, maintaining a steady flow and animated voice. You need to maintain appropriate body language. You shouldn't look stiff, tense, stressed and aggressive. And you should develop ability of interpreting the feedback. Your audience may not give you oral feedback all the time, but sometimes their body language, the way they look at you, their gaze, their stare, their body language, their presence, they all give you a clue. You have to understand the cues and clues that you get from the audience and interpret the feedback and accordingly customize your delivery. That's important, right? So there are certain characteristics we need to understand in English. This is not an exhaustive list, but some basic fundamental thing I wanted to mention, like elision and assimilation. We just discussed about it. Fast train. The first word has the t sound at the end, and the train second word has the t sound at the beginning. In the connected speech, when you speak, it is assimilated. Fast train, right? Sometimes speakers have this tendency of making contracted forms and weak forms of vowel, right? All speakers have their own idiosyncrasies, their own style and also idiosyncrasies. When we speak, we have the tendency of hopping from one idea to the other without completing the sentence. So you'll have many a times half-finished sentences, right? So while listening to them, you should understand, and while speaking, you have to keep in mind these things. Then didactic elements like demonstrative pronouns, this, that, there, those, right? They all have different applications. They are, at times they are pronouns, at certain places they become adjective, right? Okay, so we have to think about that, understand them. Discourse markers. So when we speak and interact, we have lots of fillers, well, just a minute, precisely, absolutely. So these are discourse markers which signal your engagement in the interaction, but not necessarily carry the lexical content. Okay, so you have to understand them. There are words like then, so, but. They are also used to organize your thought. So not necessarily they are a particular grammatical unit or a word with a particular grammatical function. No, sometimes and then, so, but, such words are used as an anchor to recollect and organize your thought. So you have to develop those kinds of skills as well. You know, usual speed is 120 to 150 words per minute, but anything above 100 words per minute is sufficient and a very good flow, right? So don't worry about, don't try to speak too much in a too little time. Take your time, speak fluently, take your time, and 100 words per minute is sufficient. Now we need to understand certain useful expressions. So as a beginner in English, if you are using, so you have to develop certain phrases and utterances, how to begin for that matter, how to put things in order for that matter, how to signal a change for that matter in the interaction, right? Now I will move to XYZ, I will conclude with XYZ, I will end by XYZ. So they signal the change of your idea. How to order arguments. So firstly, in the first place, the first thing I want to say, I would like to discuss about this, right? Secondly, thirdly, lastly. So that orders your argument. How to end. So we can see that to sum up, we need to take it into consideration in short, and we continue. So this is how we end our idea. How to express opinion. So in my opinion, or as I think, as I believe, this is how we go about it. Signaling choice, right? So agreeing, disagreeing, right? It has to be done politely, and certain sentences and words signal that you agree. Certain sentences and words signal you don't agree. So I hope I make a sense, but at the same time, and then continue. Something like I do understand, but I think that, and then, so you're disagreeing, right? So this is how we need to develop such expressions, right? Turn taking and turn giving. This is my opinion, but what do you think? You're giving the turn to other person. Do you agree to the fact that, and then you're giving turn? Or you can directly say, what is your opinion about it? But do you think, and then that means you are signaling a turn giving. You're giving the turn to your communication partner. Don't you think, and then you're giving turn. So turn taking and turn giving. And finally, last but not the least, finally, in professional domain, you need to look tidy, prepared, confident, right? So you have to groom yourself. Effective speaking doesn't mean only language and word. It's an overall package. So you have to also work on your personal aspects, right? Your appearance. I'm not talking about physical attributes. I'm not talking about your color, your hairstyle, and everything. No. I'm talking about how tidy you look, how organized you look, how prepared you look, because that adds to your confidence and also confidence of your audience. You need to look sincere. You need to look thorough, easily accessible, friendly, and flexible, right? And you need to understand and interpret the non-verbal cues of your audience. So with all these, we can make our presentation, our discussion, our interaction, and public speech effective. And you can be an effective speaker of English and effective user of English. And these are not a very complicated thing. This is not rocket science. It's an art you need to inculcate, develop, and it will come to you gradually with practice. So thank you very much for the day.